Greetings, my name is Michael Cook. I'm an application developer, design artist, and system engineer, and in this particular video I'm going to be discussing constructive strategies. This is particularly going to do with this program that I wrote called Q3A-Live Map Development Kit. So what I'm going to do is load up some of these required assemblies and stuff. I do have to update my module at some point, but I'm not ready to do that. I'm going to go ahead and select all this code here and then load and open the utility that I'm going to be sort of dissecting and talking about with these various panels that I have open. So anyway, I've made a few videos featuring this utility, but I haven't discussed the work that went into making it, nor some other ideas that I have. Anytime that you deal with somebody who's got multiple tabs open, you know that they're a programmer or a scripter at least. And I got a bunch of different ideas that I came up with as I was making this map pack on Quake Live Steam Workshop. Where is it? There it is. So I'll open this up. I'll do it the programmer way. That'll open it up in the web browser. Alright, so these are all the maps that I've been working on over the last several months, and they're getting played on multiple servers on the Quake Live community, so I am getting positive feedback. A lot of people are checking them out. There's a bunch of subscribers. There's information for every single map, plus a video for each map, the prior version of each map. And in order to make every single one of these maps, I use this utility here. So I want to expand on what this utility is capable of doing. Right now, all of these things in this dependency box can be installed through this, but I have to be considerate of, let's say there's another dependency, or maybe someone doesn't want to use GTK Radiant, maybe they want to use Net Radiant, which I've been using Net Radiant, but not Net Radiant Custom. And then once I was able to see Net Radiant Custom in action, I really like Net Radiant Custom. So I'm just going to load this up for a second and then show how responsive this editor is compared to regular GTK Radiant or Net Radiant, not Net Radiant Custom. So I think this is the most current repository related to map editing. Right, so I'm just opening up the editor to it's taking a pretty long time, probably because my laptop has trouble running a lot of stuff at the same time. So it's also loading the archives and stuff. But yeah, this is a really snappy editor. Not sure why a lot of these shaders aren't showing up. Maybe I gotta move over the Q3 spog.pk3 or something like that. But yeah, this is Insane Products, and I have this little banner here. It's my company logo that is transparent. That's actually a PNG that I created like several years ago. The transparency, right? And yeah, this editor is pretty top notch. So kudos to the dude who made it. Not sure why that's there. But anyway, yeah, there's that. So all those maps that I showed here I made with the editor, whether it's GTK Radiant, Net Radiant, or Net Radiant Custom, whatever editor you want to use, I should be able to add a way for someone to put their own dependency in there. So anyway, what I kind of want to do is go over the GUI as well as the code bind, and then start dissecting all of these other scripts and ideas that I want to integrate into this. And the first thing I'm going to do is go through like the GUI here and talk about how when I go from one item to the next, This will be more PowerShell or XAML centric explanation right now, but there's an event handler that anytime I change the selected icon in this grid, it will change anything in that text box. It'll change the icon to see if the path is acceptable, or like if that directory exists, then it'll say that, right? But like, if I were to remove some of these things, they won't show up, and then I want to make changes to whatever. Let's say ImageMagick isn't installed at ImageMagick. It's got it's installed in this folder up to the cursor, and if I wanted to add other dependencies into this, I want to be able to save it to the registry. So what I'm going to do right now is actually where is this? So as you can see, if you look in this particular class here, it is not mentioning where the registry root is. However, if I go to this one, no, it's not that one. And I'm going to open up all of these classes, right? And then I'm going to explain basically every single one of them. So the dependencies, I have to sort of update that. I don't want it to be static like that. I want it to be able to dynamically figure out where it is and then figure that out. So this is sort of the stuff that I want to change about this program. Stuff that I'm hard coding essentially into the classes so that where things go. It depends on how the user wants to use it, right? Workspace entry. Oh, I added all of this stuff last night. So here's, where is it? Sorry, I'm having an issue here finding what I'm looking for. So I'm going to highlight all that. No, I can't do that in this one. I'm going to close this. I'll reopen it at some point. Oh. So this is sort of a snappier version of this. Whoa, what the hell? And then Alt-Main will go ahead and populate certain stuff. So alt.registry will show you all, yeah, the resource is supposed to have the path to, alright, so this is kind of the reason why I don't like to make a lot of videos of me talking about programming and stuff, because trying to figure it out while making changes and stuff and talking is kind of difficult. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pause this for a second. All right, so I have an audio log that I recorded last night, which bears relevance to this entire thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this, and I'm going to mute my mic. When it's over, I will come back. I'll re-enable the microphone and then continue on. Audio log Thursday, June 26, 2025. Michael Cook speaking. It's currently 7:59 p.m. Making this audio log to talk about Q3A-Live Map Development. Yeah, the Q3A-Live Map Development Kit. Although, kind of going to expand on what this tool does or can do. And I came up with a bunch of ideas about a month ago, and then I did a little bit of programming over the last month. I mean, when I say doing a little bit of programming, I'm talking like I'll spend 8 to 12 hours for like 2 or 3 days straight programming stuff. So I don't always do that, but the last few days I've been wanting to get around to updating the GUI and the code behind so that it can accommodate the use case scenario that I had. So originally when I made this map development kit, I made it so that you could work on individual maps and compile them and package them and implement shaders and stuff.
but I kind of want to make it possible so that you could combine multiple different maps and make a map pack. You know, basically make a program that can recreate the map pack that I already compiled and put onto the Quake Live Steam Workshop. So I uploaded this map pack, the beta version of it, June 5th, earlier this month, and then I updated it the next day because I guess there were issues with certain criteria in the map names. Can't use hyphens, I guess, because it won't. One of the plugins in the game won't actually allow that name to work. It'll say invalid vote string. So then I went through and changed all of the file names and stuff, and everything in every individual file within the map pack needed to be updated with the new name. So there was that. But anyway, yeah, I want to be able to come up with a bunch of rules that'll orchestrate the whole process. And how's it going? Good. I wrote a bunch of classes to compile all the maps in an array. So rather than to compile one at a time, well, it is going to compile them one at a time, but it'll do it in a loop. And then once they're all compiled, then I can run the other script that packages everything up, makes modifications to certain files or whatever, and then it includes I don't know, assets that are referenced in a couple of the maps. I guess I screwed up with a couple of items that I didn't manage to get over to the PK3, so I have to update that. But I don't really want to update this map pack now because a lot of people are playing it, a lot of people are enjoying the maps, the updated versions of all my maps, generally favored by a lot of the players. And then they're also getting a chance to play new maps that I've been working on for months, but they haven't had any exposure to other than through video. And simply put, I want to be able to expand my the program so that it can accommodate a few more ideas that I came up with. And I added them to my to-do list last month, and I had a bunch of issues with getting everything to work the way I wanted it to. But you know, on June 5th, I ran this script that compiled all the maps one after another, and then I ran another script that looked through all the textures that are referenced in each map file, and then to go through the shader file, parse all of that, and then get all of that stuff out, and then to exfiltrate the stuff that is referenced or needed. You know, there's plenty of situations where I didn't consider all of the possible variables or properties or whatever. Like some of the models are missing the textures or the skins, and that's because those textures or skins were in a different place, and I forgot to include that. So the process for me making all of these maps into the map pack is as follows. I started out by making a map. I think it was Kerberos. And then once I realized that Kerberos was fun, people liked it, and it was popular, I decided to continue working on other projects. So then I built Tempered Graveyard, and then I built, not sure the order of the maps that I worked on, but regardless, I wrote a bunch of classes and methods to be able to log all of the activity whenever I was packaging up PK3 or compiling a map or transferring it or testing it. All that stuff is logged. So with all those log files, I can reconstitute like the activity over the last several months of me working on the maps and stuff. And then, you know, I had to conceptualize this process before actually working on all the maps. But once I had a working concept, then, you know, I was able to whittle away at certain ideas and stuff that I wanted to implement. Right, but like it's been several months since I worked on the actual utility, like from top to bottom. And rather than to go through the existing code and then, you know, write new classes that do new things, what I wind up doing is I'll create a new script. It'll be empty, and then I'll start from the class factory, the biggest class that embeds all of the subclasses, and then I'll go through the entire process from beginning to end. And I'll start to go through the prior iteration of the script. I'll extract some of the classes piece by piece, and then, you know, with all the methods and classes that I have, I can test it as I rebuild it. And I might often rename some of the methods so that they're more coherent, or they're grouped more logically in order. So one of the techniques that I use is, let's say I have a script, right? Script is accessing some sort of .NET class type, like system.io.file. Now, rather than to use that specific class type in that particular manner, what I can do is I can create a method that simulates the name of that class and method, right? And then I can call upon that method to do that very thing, to access that .NET class type, and that perform certain operations and log it and stuff. Right? Like if you're running a naked script that's just like testing if a directory exists and then to create it. If it doesn't, then you'll have to run a script that'll do that. You know, it's only a couple lines that you'll be able to do that, but you want to make sure that that's implemented, because if it isn't, then the script can produce errors or invalid files or folders or whatever, and it's got to go through order of operations to do all this stuff correctly. So once I start getting into the swing of things, then what I'll do is I'll start to implement some of the other ideas that I developed in other scripts, and then start to create one big, gigantic script, much like the original. However, sometimes the number of classes that I use is pretty overwhelming. That will oftentimes overwhelm me. So if I'm not like touching any of my code after like a few days or a couple weeks, then I'll get rusty, and then so I have to spend some time acclimating back into it, you know, figuring out what does what. You know, I might run the entire thing at once, but you know, I might not. I might want to run certain methods and then deconstruct like the entire process. So oftentimes, if I make a class, the constructor will have a couple of parameters. Hey, how's it going? And those parameters will be fed into the class, and then it'll remember those properties, and then I can section off different scriptlets or methods that will you know, modify the properties or test the properties or use the assigned properties as a base. And what this does is it separates, it reduces my need to have to use additional variables throughout the script, while also maintaining like the integrity of the process, right? Like I can log all this stuff that's being changed when it's changed. And yeah, I don't know. The scripts that I wrote to make the map compilation array and then the original manner that I was using are very different. So I have to figure out how I'm gonna pull that off. And then once I get the code behind to look the way that I want it to, then I have to edit the graphical user interface so that it can accommodate the new options. And this process, a lot of people will probably like the end result of what I'm doing, but the time necessary, the kind of flubbing right now. The time that I need to be able to conceptualize all this stuff, it takes a while. I'll spend more time like thinking about doing it than I will actually doing it in a lot of cases. But it's not a consistent case where I wind up spending like days or weeks thinking about how I'm going to do something. Sometimes I really just gotta get my knees wet and get to work, and just brute force my way into working on whatever it is. And then kind of tired right now, so like I'm not like 110% there. The sun's been coming up mad early. It's the middle of summer, and waking up at like 4 in the morning, like basically every day now. I don't really care for it, but whatever. Yeah, I'm a little bit more tired than I usually am. So, regardless, so getting all these scripts that I worked on over the last month to be included into the map development kit, and as well as a couple of other ideas that I started working on a while back but never capitalized on. Getting target images to show up in the XAML interface is kind of a pain in the ass. It's doable, but you need to install a certain library. And while I'm not against like using libraries or modules to do stuff, it is going to impact people's ability to use this program at scale. So I'm always considerate of that. How is the code going to work at scale? So if you're making something, it's going to be reproducible. Other people are going to wind up using the tool. It needs to be polished. It needs to be well constructed. It has to be efficient, and all this other stuff that I mentioned. Yeah, I mean, it's a tall order to do all this, but at the same time, the hardest part of what I'm doing is what I'm doing right now. It's easy to wind up, trying to go back and fix certain elements or whatever. But the biggest issue with the process is renaming all the methods and stuff. You got to go through and rename a bunch of methods that don't exactly make a lot of sense. And then anytime I change the names of the methods, I might have to change the name of the stuff in the XAML. I'm going to wind up having to like rewrite a lot of the XAML, but most of it will remain intact. And it's just it. You got to be able to look at the tool as it currently exists and then start to reconstruct it on the side. Using all the pieces and elements from it, and be able to pull off a different objective or add a new feature or some other variation of working on it. Being able to handle compiling one map versus like a list of maps is can be kind of time consuming. You compile a map, you run through the utility, and then you load it up, and then you figure out, you find out pretty quickly that you screwed something up, so then you got to change it in the editor, and then you got to compile it again, and then you got to package it up again, and then you got to test it, make sure the thing is fixed. Oh, it's not fixed. Oh, you forgot to close the editor to transfer the new updated version. Okay, so you go back and you do that, and then you load up the map again, and then yes, the change is implemented, but the way it looks is kind of dumb. So then go back into the editor, fix it up a bit, try to add some more geometry or some technique to liven it up a bit. Oh, now a shader that you wrote doesn't work in some particular instance. All right, open up the Notepad++, change the shader, update whatever is referenced there. Oh, the textures and shaders aren't upscaled, so all right, time to open up GIMP and then get those textures in there and upscale them and then rename them for the output file accordingly, and then go back into the editor and then update all the textures with the upscale version of the textures, the reference texture. But you forgot to recompile the map archive, so then you got to go back in and do that. So like me having all this going back and forth experience is going to be helpful for me to create this utility that'll kind of like, you know, indicate when and where a problem is occurring, right? Like some of the errors that I ran into while compiling many of the maps or even trying to play them was weird shit, like trying to load up one of my maps and then the game just crashes with no indication of what caused it. So then I had to figure out, like, all right, so can't save the JPEGs as progressive, otherwise that'll cause the engine to lock up. All right, implement that. Oh, that fixed it. All right, cool. So anytime it's loading the map and then it just crashes, it doesn't tell you why it crashed, that's probably the reason. You know, and there's no way to log something like that unless you know what conditions are going to be there. So these are all the particulars of the program I wrote, so that it could, you know, it's not going to automate all of this stuff, but it is going to make it a lot more convenient for like a new map author to just come up with an idea and build it. And so, you know, are there a lot of people that are going to wind up making maps for a 25-year-old game? Probably not. But, you know, who knows? Maybe someone will. You know, they still make maps for games like Doom, you know, from 1993. And a lot of people, they're focused on the stuff that's here and now. All right, but like the stuff that's here and now, it's going to wind up being 25 years old at some point. And then by that point, they're probably going to be into something else. And there'd be some diehard fans that'll stick around for, you know, 25 years or whatever, but, you know, it's just the way things go. People like doing new stuff, break the cycle and this, that, and the other thing. So yeah, it's kind of like the point of me working on this program again. Like, I thought to myself that I wasn't going to work on it for a while, but now that I got the map pack up on the Steam Workshop, at least the beta version of it, I did spend the last 3 weeks or so just kind of fucking around, giving myself a break. But, you know, other things happened and caught my interest and my attention, and then I didn't really want to come back to working on all this shit. But now I'm at a point where I'm like forcing myself to do it because, you know, it is kind of interesting, and, you know, it's interesting to me. Might not necessarily be interesting to a lot of other people, but, you know, who am I to say? Sometimes you just need some time to be able to work things out. And, you know, sometimes I get the feeling that I'm like constantly giving myself bad advice. And, you know, I do question that at times, but, you know, I think that several years ago, I had like a mental breakdown or something. And, it was all because of this girl that I wound up dating, who was, well, we'll call it quote-unquote dating her. And, you know, I was trying to figure out why a bunch of shit just wound up happening to me. And then, you know, I spent like an entire summer driving around asking these questions over and over again. Why does this shit keep happening to me? And I realized that, like, it's because of my principles. You know, a lot of people think they have principles, but I don't know. Principles are things that never change. If your principles change depending on who you're talking about, those aren't principles, those are emotions. So a principle will be like, it doesn't matter who you are. If you do something, you're going to face the consequences for having done it. Whereas a lot of people, they'll be more or less lenient with one person or another. And that's to be expected, but sometimes people charm their way out of their circumstances. Sometimes people allow their principles to be walked on or over or ignored or abused. And then people wind up in relationships where they might love their partner. They might think they love their partner, but you know, they do so many things that erode their principles. And yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is in order to do something that is solid from top to bottom, especially if you're just, you know, one guy like I am, you have to have your principles intact, and you know, you don't necessarily have to take action all the time, but when you do take action, you know exactly what action to take, and you're not going to fuck around with accomplishing that particular objective. You know, it's okay to take a little bit of time, or, you know, in many cases, as much time as you need to get some stuff done. But you have to be considerate of, like, what other people are getting done, what they're experiencing, or you know, the life that they're living is, you know, is not considering whatever, I don't know. They're not being considerate of, like, any inconvenience to you. They're only being considerate of any inconveniences to them. And that's kind of the point that I was trying to get to. Took a roundabout way of getting to that point, but yeah, I think a lot of times when I'm doing stuff, I'll find some roundabout way to achieve some sort of objective. It'll be some idea that someone might think is out there, right? But every time that I do this, I make observations about people's responses or their psychology, and oftentimes I get to nail down what somebody's psychology really is. You know, are they the overconfident asshole that seems to think they know everything because they're able to hit Control-C and Control-V on work that they didn't do, and they know that the guy who did the original work was really good at what he did, so as long as he can Control-C and Control-V away and take credit for what he did, you know, he can continue to be overconfident. But, you know, my principle is, if I do hit Control-C and Control-V on a bunch of stuff, it's going to be a small snippet of something. It's not going to be like an entire program or an entire idea. And then even then, when someone else gives me ideas or whatever, I'll still rip those ideas apart to their smallest components, and then, you know, slowly work toward building whatever I'm attempting to achieve. So right now I am sort of talking in circles because I'm trying to draw up parallels between stuff that's happening in my real life as well as stuff that's happening with you know, my programming, my maps or whatever. And I'm using a technique called parallels or metaphors. there might be a path before you. The path could be an actual path, a physical path, but it could also be a metaphorical path. And learning to be able to speak in this manner is incredibly difficult to master, but once you start to use it here and there, it's not too dissimilar from using like innuendo. Sometimes you might have enough insight to think everything is an innuendo, and then I don't know. Not everything is innuendo though. Some things kind of stupid to call innuendo, but the most mundane conversation you can have with somebody could have some innuendo in it, or like a double entendre, like that's like a joke or whatever. But yeah, I mean, someone like me is going to think of all sorts of stuff like that, and then trying to implement that in some of my programming. It takes a while to do this. But I mean, the objective of this work I've been up to is so that I can make a video that shows the code and then the GUI, and then I could run it all and then show people how to use it, and then using it will contain all the dependencies and the components, and then they'll be able to use it, and they'll be able to make their own stuff. So like, I'm not gonna say the world absolutely needs to have me make this program, but considering like I made a program that helped me make the maps, and the maps turned out to be pretty fun, and people are playing them, and I got an awards for the maps. I think things are heading in a positive direction. I got some people that are asking me a lot of questions about the maps. I got some people that are just kind of being an outright dickhead and saying that the maps suck. But I think that the people who do that are people that are generally unlikable to begin with. Some dude was like criticizing my map a couple weeks ago, and then my friend was like, yeah, I never liked that dude. He's always fucking bitching and complaining or whatever about something. Fuck him. Like, okay. I'm open to the concept of people having their opinions, but like if they're just gonna have a sharp, abrasive opinion just because they're irritable or whatever, then I'm not going to consider that opinion. If they have negative criticisms, then if they can say them constructively, I'll address them. But so far, from what I can tell, I haven't gotten any negative criticisms that contain anything descriptive about what the criticism, like if there's a reason behind the criticism. And it probably sounds like I'm talking like some teenager who doesn't really know anything about how the world works or whatever. But what I'm doing is I'm trying to map out like all the possibilities of everybody's psychology, and to figure out like what's genuine and what isn't. So one of my gifts is being able to tell when somebody is talking whether someone is being genuine or insincere. And that is a difficult skill to master when you put yourself in a position to have to deal with it every day. Right? So like some people think they can just casually lie to people and not keep their word or whatever. And then, whoever they wind up doing this to, they just gotta accept it and move on with their life. Even if they know that they're lying, it doesn't matter. There's nothing they can do about it. Right? I don't like people like that. I like people that make a better effort to say how they really feel or say what they really mean. And I could tell when someone's being sincere versus being like negatively sarcastic or like sadistically sarcastic, or just like, you know, thinks that I'm a fucking idiot. And then, you know, a lot of times I'll figure that person out pretty quickly. You know, if they're saying stuff. If they're not saying stuff, then I won't be able to figure that out. I just have to, you know, operate on any previous observations I've made. So, that said, it is what it is. And at some point I'm going to wind up finishing what I'm working on here, and then that'll be it. Be able to make a video of all this shit, or maybe just portions of it, and, you know, make a bunch of clips. I don't know, we'll see. End log.
Alright, so yeah, I'm gonna have to manually edit that to make the volume a little bit louder. Yeah, I talked about a lot of stuff in that audio log and tried to work and comment what I was working on as I was working on it. It's kind of a pain in the neck to juggle all these tasks simultaneously, but so what I want to do is really difficult to do because I have to figure out like what I'm going to add to this in the GUI, so that here I'm just going to set this workspace path so that this populates, and all the code behind that I just showed off you know, reproduces all this stuff into the GUI and whatever. But then when I go over to the map tab, I need to have an option, so I need to change this. I need to have like a data grid. I need to make sure that it's going for the path and not a particular map. Right, so I'll say C drive /. Oh, hold on a second. Alright, so it is already looking in the directory, and then it's checking if that map exists, so I'll hit apply. I need to change everything about this so that it can accommodate multiple maps, and then I also have to have a panel for textures, so that I can implement a way to upscale the textures, which this is all stuff that I've been thinking about over the last month and a half. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to open up GIMP, right? It's going to take a second here. And then, yeah, I need to add another tab. Like basically everything in this class right here, everything that's mentioned here has, maybe not everything is has its own tab, but a lot of these items do. Component, that's there. Dependency is part of the component tab. And then workspace and compile. That's what I need to work on, is the compile class will allow me to select certain maps in a data grid or whatever. I'll show that in a second here. Alright, so this is a graphic that's pretty large. If I were to try to upscale it, it's going to take a really long time. But if I go to something a little bit smaller, like if I go to this folder here that's got all the textures that I've been working on, and then I go to yeah, this is a pretty good idea actually. I'll go to this one texture. Did not want to upscale that well, so I have this plugin. I think I've featured this plugin before. Not sure why it's taking this long to load. Okay, so Python foo upscale with NCNN. And this is a pretty cool little plugin, but you know, I have to open up GIMP to be able to use it, whereas ImageMagick, I can access that from the command line. I'm sure there is a way for me to do that. The thing is I don't want to have to reverse engineer what this guy did. You know, I'm sure you put a lot of time and effort into making this, but yeah, I really like this plugin because I've been using it to upscale all the images in every single map. I might actually showcase that in a second here. But let's say I want to upscale it by 4, right? This particular texture breaks when you're trying to upscale it. Shouldn't take super long. Come on, dude. Oh, there we go. All right. See, so kind of breaks because on the edges you get that pattern there. You know, the middle kind of looks okay, but you can tell that the original had that same issue. So I could do like 2 different methods here to get that to work. What I could do is undo that and then go into the picture and then say image, canvas size, and then subtract like, I don't know, 4 pixels from the top and the left. I think that'll do it. And then what I want to do is, where is it? All right, it might actually upscale better now. But yeah, I mean, this requires a little bit of manual intervention, and it's not something that you'll be able to really automate or add into a command line, or I mean, a graphical user interface. You have to like manually edit the images. Man, it still showed up. I think it's because I didn't flatten the image. Let's try it again. So yeah, I mean, this is one of the textures that I wanted to use but couldn't upscale. Like I am using it in the maps because there's transparent lava, which required me to have to write the shader to, I don't know. Actually, this turned out pretty good, but how does it look when it's tiled? Oh, didn't mean to do that. So image, canvas size, double it. Hold on a second. Why is it? What the hell? Okay. Forgetting the key for that. trying to select the pixels and I can't remember what it was. I'm not gonna look it up right now, but oh, select all. There we go. Alright, so I hate how like every time I use GIMP, I have to hit that toggle box there. It's kind of annoying. So yeah, I can already see that like it's not gonna tile all that well. Like the people are gonna visibly see that. So here's what I can do though. I can tile it, and then what I can do is you know, I really don't want to get into image manipulation at this time during this video, since I'm like kind of covering programming and stuff, and I also kind of want to show off the maps and stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and close that, but you get the idea that what I want to do is implement a way to get the GUI to allow anybody to look at the particular stuff inside of a map, like the assets that it's using, and then to be able to upscale textures if needed. Right, so one of the classes that I haven't really talked about or shown anybody is this right here, and I'll talk about this because this is what I was using to basically upscale all the textures in every map. Right, so here's what I'm going to do. Close that. Yeah. Maps. Oh, wait. So let's say, I'll load that. That'd be crossfire.test, -test.map. Now what that did, it just went through that map file, and then it converted every line into an object. And then it uses regular expressions to be able to determine if there's a, there's a texture in that line, and it'll say yes. And then also to make changes. So like, it might have been this texture beforehand. It would be this texture beforehand, and then it would be that texture afterward, and then it will upscale it by 4. Now there is a plugin in the editor, in a couple of the editors, where you can do that, but I don't think you can do it for like an array of textures. You have to manually go through them. So like, I'll wind up having, let's go up to Tempered Graveyard. Where the hell is that? I think it's this one. Yeah, it is this one. So like, manually going through and adding all of these textures to upscale them, it's kind of a pain in the neck, because then you have to go through each individual map. Like if you do this manually, you want to change all the textures to another texture, but you don't apply any scaling or differencing or positioning, you're going to wind up spending hours and hours and hours and hours and hours doing something that this thing takes like seconds to do. And like sometimes I want to make things easier on myself, so what I'll do is I'll spend several hours writing something like this. I might not get I might not be able to get it done in a single day, so then I have to think about it overnight, and then when I come in the next day, then I'll think about it some more, and then eventually I'll have something that could even be used in the utility. So I think this could wind up being I do think that I will find a way to get all of this implemented at some point, but for the sake of brevity, I'm not going to continue to do any more live coding here, or whatever you want to call it, me recording this and kind of discussing things as I go. So that having been said, I will likely have another video that covers some of this stuff in the not too distant future. Thanks for watching.